What is up, guys? Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm Rob Whiteside. It's 2021. I really thought it was going to be a better start to the year. We're having a little bit of a rough time, but thank you for joining us anyway. Thanks for sticking around. And tonight, we are talking about Flubber with my good friend, Devin. Devin, how are you?
Hello, I am so good, and I hear you loud and clear. You sound great, Rob.
Yeah, I already got it. We already got a super chat. Thank you so much for Hey Rob Unmute. So, yeah, I mean, I'll take it. We are welcoming all super chats. If you guys are joining us for the first time, we appreciate it. Please make sure to like and subscribe. We really do appreciate it, and I know it sounds cheesy to say, but it really means a lot. So thank you guys so much. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this first. We chose this movie, Flubber. We talked about this back in December. Devin had hit me up and said, "Hey, I want to do Flubber," and I was like, "Great, we got some Christmas stuff to talk about, and then we'll come back to you and we'll talk about Flubber." Now here we are. It's January. Devin, why did you want to talk about Flubber?
Because it is one of my childhood favorites. When I saw this was on Disney Plus, I freaked out because I don't even know the last time I watched this movie, but it has been forever. And it's Robin Williams, and it's an animated green slime rubber, and it's just great.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, I obviously for Deep in the Plus, we dig deep into this. Not only did I look into this movie in great detail, but also watch the original, and so did you. So, The Absent-Minded Professor was the original from 1961, starring Fred MacMurray, and it was right off the heels of a movie that he did with Tommy Kirk called The Shaggy Dog. They got back together for this movie in very different roles, and The Absent-Minded Professor was kind of like the second big comedy from Disney. And so this one, I think we do need to go back and forth a little bit between the two. But one of the other things about this whole franchise is the Flubber. It started with two different stories. There was a series of short stories about this scientist. One of the stories was about a flying car, and the other was about this rubber that he invented, and so they just kind of crossed the streams and came up with flying rubber, or Flubber, for this. Did I blow your mind? I did, didn't I?
You most certainly did.
Yeah. So you watched this as a kid?
Yeah, Flubber I did. The
Yeah.
Absent-Minded Professor I did not know existed until yesterday.
I didn't even know it existed. Wow. I'm actually proud of you for going back and watching this movie. One of the things that always got me as a kid about this movie is that there was another movie, and you're too young to remember this, so I'm going to put you off screen for a second. There was another movie called Chitty Chitty Bang Bang that came out with Dick Van Dyke and a flying car, and it felt like a Disney movie. It had the Sherman Brothers who made it, or made the music. It was a flying car. It was Dick Van Dyke. This felt like, a Disney movie, but it wasn't. It was done by the same studios that did James Bond movies. Albert Broccoli was the producer of the movie. It was basically a kind of a copy of a Disney movie, but the posters were very similar between The Absent-Minded Professor and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, because it was a flying car. And so I always got those two confused when I was a kid. But now that Absent-Minded Professor and Flubber on Disney Plus, everybody has a chance to watch both these movies. We're gonna wait till the end for you to give us your total review of Flubber. What do you think? A little bit of Absent-Minded Professor. But one of the things that I found interesting was how different these two movies were while being the same.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I do think that, I mean, obviously some of it is because one movie came out in the 60s and the other film, as much as I hate to say it, almost has like an early 2000s like snack commercial kind of look. Like I feel like watching it back, I thought, wow, at any point Flubber could be promoting like Gushers or Capri Sun or something like that, and it would not surprise me, which is probably a little bit of the reason Flubber became such a big part of the remake. It just feels very merchandise friendly and kid friendly, whereas the 60s movie feels like definitely a family friendly movie, but I don't know if as a kid I would really have understood what was going on.
So the substance itself in the first movie is basically like slime or silly putty, and it doesn't have like a personality. In the second movie, or the reboot, the 1997 movie, it is a character in the movie. It's Professor Brainerd, it's the Flubber, it's Weebo. This is a small, weird, odd family that has been put together here, and so it does have character. It's interesting that they made that change. One other thing I wanted to bring up, though, that you and I did not talk about, is that there was a 1988 made-for-television version of this starring Harry Anderson. Don't know if you know who he is. He was like a comedian magician. He was on Night Court. He was the judge on Night Court. You've probably seen him in random places, but he was in a what was like, I think they called it a spiritual sequel. So it was kind of like it was the same movie, but the other one existed before it. So in this universe, the other one had happened before. And in this movie, a couple of things, little stair steps between the two happened. One is he had a computer assistant. It was like an Apple IIe, like, or an Apple like classic computer with like Albert Einstein on the screen that like gave him like suggestions and things. So he communicated with that a little bit, but he still had a dog. That was the difference too. Like you have Weibo in the new movie. In the old movie, he had Charlie the dog. In this one in between, he's got a dog, but he's also got this computer that's an assistant. And the flubber was actually green. Now, whether it was green or not in the original movie, I doubt. It looks like mud sludge, but it was also in black and white, so we really don't know, right?
Right, and also kind of looking at how how they differentiate Flubber in the two films. Obviously, the newer version is animated. I don't know if this one in the middle you're talking about, if that one's animated as well, but it was kind of cool to see a more tangible putty version of Flubber, you know, like in the 60s version, when he's getting it out, when he's messing with it, I guess you feel a little bit better about him messing with it because it's not a sentient being. There are definitely some implications after watching the two as to, wow, I wonder if Flubber cares how he's used or utilized, since
Right.
you know, if he's ticklish, does he feel pain? There are a lot of questions that kind of come up when when you watch them back to back.
Yeah. So the basic story is you've got Professor Brainerd. He is an absent-minded professor. So they talk about him in the Flubber movie as being an absent-minded professor. And he is supposed to be getting married. This is his third chance to get married to Sarah, who's played by Marcia Gay Harden. She is, in the first movie, Betsy, who is the love interest, is the secretary to the dean. In the new movie, she's the dean. Which is great, you know, kind of a feminine power, kind of a dynamic switch in how that all played out. But when we see her for the first time, she's getting a wedding dress fitting in her office. I'm not really sure that's the right message to send, but it's happening, and it's the third time that they're going to allow this to happen. Same thing happened in the first movie. In the first movie, though, he has a housekeeper who's leaving notes everywhere going, "Don't forget you're getting married, don't forget you're getting married." And then there's an explosion and he passes out. In this one, Weibo, and we'll talk about Weibo and her unnatural love of him in a little while, but Weibo is basically sabotaging this by taking the wedding off of his planner all the time, so that she's like basically tricking him into not going. He's already absent-minded, he gets distracted, and then things happen. But so that's how it starts, is he's supposed to be getting married. He gets focused on this experiment. The explosion happens, and Flubber is made. Both movies the same thing. Then there's this whole thing about there's another suitor, and it's in the first movie it's a guy who is already there, and he's a friend of hers. Same kind of thing happens in the second movie, but it's just one of those things where he's the villain, and he's trying to convince her, hey, you should come be with me instead. Because that guy's a weirdo. He's an absent-minded professor, and you should just ignore him. So that aside, now we're into basically the rest of the movie. The invention's been made. The rest of the movie is really him trying to get Sarah back, isn't it?
Yeah, on both counts. I think in rewatching this movie, that was the biggest takeaway I had, was that Flubber doesn't really show up that much. When he does, it's fun, and I think those are still the moments that kid me remembers more than any other part of the film. But in rewatching it, I was like, yeah, it is a catalyst in the beginning. It kind of jumpstarts some areas of the plot, but once you've gotten into it, it's definitely more of a love story between the professor and Sarah, or Betsy in the 60s version. But yeah, essentially it's just a love story.
So that's another question, is why do the names have to be different? In the first one, it's Ned Brainerd, but Brainerd is there. He's Professor Dr. Ned Brainerd. In the second one, it's Philip Brainerd. In the first movie, it's Betsy. In the second movie, it's Sarah. Why do those things have to be different?
The only thing, I didn't even notice that Brainerd's first name was different, but in regards to the female characters, I was like, I wonder if it's just because Betsy would have been, more of a common name at the time, but Sarah? I mean, I don't know if you can argue more women in general were being named Sarah in the late 70s. I feel like there's always many, many a Sarah. So who knows? You would think if they were going to update the names a little bit, it would be, a kind of a showing of the.
I think I'm starting to lose you. I think you're kind of hiccuping a little bit. If you do me a favor and just hit refresh on your screen for a little while, and then basically what I want to talk about here is that yeah, there are probably some things that made it more hip to be able to do it modern, like the Weibo, and then all of his things being like his whole house is automated, and that was another thing that I thought about too when this first came up, is that his house is all automated in the same way that that Wayne Szalinski's house is automated in the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He's got all these little things happening, right? And like there's the pancake maker. Only difference is that all of his works perfectly, right? Then he's got Weibo, and he's got Weber, who is like the house like butler, like cleaning up everything. Here's what I don't understand. He has some of the biggest, coolest, smartest technology. Why does he have to invent something else? Why isn't he making the millions that he needs to make for the school off of Weibo or off of Weber or off of all these other inventions? I mean, right? Am I wrong on that? I still can't hear you. Can you sing something? No. Still no. I don't know what you did. Whatever you did, undo it. You keep working it out and talk. And if I hear you jump in, I'll figure it out from there. So yeah, Karen's in chat saying yeah, now she's muted. Totally agree. So
Oh,
hey, I hear you.
oh, you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, great.
So you're back.
I am.
Don't ever leave me again. I was very worried. One thing that I wanted to bring up about characters while we're talking about characters, and I've been working on something over here. Hold on a second. This is gonna be great. It's gonna be totally worth it. It's not, but it could be.
Oh, it is.
Hold on a second. Now I've screwed it up. All right. So the character of Biff in the first movie, and here's again, Biff in the first movie is the son of the bad guy. The bad guy's name is Hawk,
Yeah.
and his son is Biff. In the second movie, I don't even know how to pronounce the guy's name because I don't think they say it, but it's some other long, it's like Honecker or something like that. But it's his first name's still Chester. No, it's Chester. The first name is Alonzo in the earlier one. But the son's name is Bennett instead of it being Biff. So Tommy Kirk played the original Biff in the movie. So here's a picture of Biff with his dad. He's this school kid. But then Will Wheaton plays him later. It's kind of the same kid. I mean, they look so freaking similar. It's just like, I can't even believe it. Tommy Kirk, who was, again, in The Shaggy Dog with Fred McMurray. And then here's Will Wheaton of Star Trek and now Big Bang fame. But it's crazy to me how similar that they look. It's like they went, who's the kid who looks exactly like Tommy Kirk? Get him. We don't care what he does. Just get him.
Yeah, it's pretty uncanny. I can't say that for any of the other characters, but honestly, between the two, I did actually, when I found out that it was Will Wheaton in Flubber, I could at least make that distinction. But the way they look is uncanny.
Yeah. So here's another thing that I wanted to point out is that Betsy, and you may have this more ready than I do, but Betsy, who the actress's name was, Nancy Olson. So she was in. She made a cameo in Flubber. So did you find that in your watchings of it?
What? No. Where is she?
I'm going to show you, Devin. Thanks for asking. Here we go. This is he goes to sell the car, the idea of the flying car, not Flubber, but the idea of the flying car to Ford Motor Company because why wouldn't you? And when he does, the secretary is Betsy. This is Betsy from the original movie.
God.
Yep. So she's got this whole little piece in here where she's like, "Oh, by the way, there's a Professor Brainerd here to see you," and he's like, "Oh, just send him a hat. I don't have an appointment." And she's like, "He's here right now," and he's like, he's right outside there." And they open up the window, and then here they are in their flying car outside the window. So, yeah, so that Betsy made a little appearance in there. Kind of cool, right?
I love it.
There we go. That's when we go deep in the plus, right there. We're finding that stuff out.
Boom.
Yeah, exactly. So there are a lot of characters in this in Flubber the movie, but Weebo was the one that I remember the most from watching this the first time. There's a lot of things about it that upon rewatching I was like, oh, I don't remember this, I don't remember that, but Weebo is one that I remember a lot because I remember how tragic it was. And this is spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen this movie, but I assume if you're watching this, you've probably seen the movie. You just need to go back and watch it again. But in this one, Weebo dies in the end. And it's just like, again, this is this like basically AI that he has developed and discovered, and yet that's not good enough for him. He's still got to make more inventions. And, you know, she dies, but in this thing, that's what I remember the most, though. But as I go back and watch this now, and I think you've talked about this a little bit too, Weebo's creepy. Like, she is like a stalker, basically, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Wow. Like that flew way over my head, way over my head the first time that I watched it because, yeah, I definitely just remember her being a fun little robot. And I think that if you had asked me prior to rewatching, I was almost under the impression that she was like his, either had the essence of like his ex-wife or whatever. Like in my brain, I was like, oh yeah, Weebo's his wife. And now that I watch it back, I'm like, well, you know, she kind of wants to be, and she's, making sure that he doesn't get a human wife. So I guess in some way, maybe that's how you can, you know, kind of explain it. But she definitely just in the way that she talks and in the way that she creates a whole persona of herself to creepily go upstairs and try to hang out with the professor is a bit strange. Instead of just, you know, communicating how she feels. It's a very roundabout way of, yes, this right here, which by the way, she names what does she name
Sylvia.
this persona? Sylvia? Yeah. And isn't that like is that the voice actor's name? It's somebody's name.
No, it may be the model who was her, but the voice actor's name is Jodie Benson. She was the Little Mermaid.
Right.
So that was the other thing, that Weebo was the Little Mermaid, and that to me again was something I remember. So this is the computer basically has fallen in love with him, and you know, it didn't seem as creepy to me at the time. I don't know why, but now it's like she's hovering over him in bed. Then there's all this like. That's another thing I'm talking about. But just, yeah, it's very, very creepy, the whole thing, right?
It's bizarre. And she immediately feels embarrassed. She feels ashamed. So it's like she knows she shouldn't have done it, but she did it anyway.
Right. So, but the other thing is that in the movie, and you saw a little bit of a snippet of it there, Weebo shows her emotions in a lot of ways, very much like Bumblebee from Transformers, with showing pictures and video of what she's feeling or thinking. And so much of it is Disney IP. It was almost like they said, hey, you know what? We own Disney. We can do anything we want to. Let's show Goofy, Dumbo, Pluto, Mickey, Donald. Like, it was almost too much, I feel like, at times when they did that. But
well, you know, they almost kind of foreshadow properties that they'll own in the future, because they also show The Simpsons, and she at one point calls him Darth Vader. And I'm like, oh, okay, Disney, I see you.
Right. In 1997, they knew they were going to buy Star Wars, so they thought, okay, it's all right to say Darth Vader. Yeah, he's wearing a gas mask as they're painting these tacks, and yeah, she says something. I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Darth Vader. That is pretty cool. But it just was one of those things where they're showing all of this footage because they can, and I kind of love that. Like when Ned puts together the Death Star in Spider-Man. I mean, like that kind of crossover, I think is kind of cool when it's a little bit subtle. This one seemed like it was a little bit too much. That they were just like, hey, if they did it once, why not do it 10 times? And I feel like they did it probably more than that. When she was pretending to sleep, they showed Sleepy. When she was pretending like she was going to kiss him, they showed Snow White getting a kiss. It was a little bit much on that, but it was a neat device to bring some life to Weibo, I think, along the way. And again, like I mentioned, Jodie Benson, the voice of the Little Mermaid in 1989, she voiced Weibo. And I think it's weird because she was attractive that they didn't use her as the embodiment of Sylvia instead, or Weibo. They used another actress for that.
I think that's where I was getting confused because I tried to look that up upon rewatch, and I thought, oh, that's going to be a great piece of trivia. And yeah, she's just listed on IMDb as, I think, like an American model, which, good for her.
Leslie
also,
Stephenson.
It would be the person.
Yeah, Leslie Stephenson. So and I may have butchered her name in how I said it there, but so let me talk about two other characters, the Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern of this movie, the two guys who are the henchmen for the bad guy. Their names, it's very, very subtle the one time they say it. Their names are Smith and Wesson, as in the gun, Smith and Wesson. But it's very subtle the way they say it because it's when they're sitting on the couch and they're explaining to, I'm going to call him Chester because I, again, butcher the last name. They're explaining to him how everything went down with this wacky Professor Brainerd and how they got hit in the head and all this stuff that happened. And in doing so, it's like, well, Smith was doing such and such and blah, blah, blah. Well, Wesson here was a lot of, and so it was just weird that they were... It's a funny joke, but it seems unnecessary. But I guess it's a family comedy, so why not make a joke about guns? But the thing that you and I again both kind of shared equal kind of like gassed about was that the one guy played by Smith, played by Clancy Brown, gets hit in the head with a golf ball. That's got to hurt. That's got to hurt. That's got to knock you down. That's got to be bad. Ted Levine, who was on Monk, as if anybody watched that TV show, he plays Wesson. He gets hit in the head full force with a bowling ball multiple times.
Totally fine. Totally fine, Rob. I don't know what the implication is here.
I mean, I know it's a movie. I get it, but he got hit in the head with a bowling ball. Which then leads me into my next question for you, Devin. As Professor Brainerd is a nerdy, science, smart guy who has this like passion for robots, but he also has like this love for this girl, and then also for his school. Why does he have so much sporting equipment?
There are a lot of questions about the professor that and one of them is that could have, I think that's just set dressing is what that is. You don't have like random golf balls and bowling balls. I wish I could have seen the scene where he just goes out and buys varying sports equipment to rub, like, what is it, like iodized or, whatever it is, crystallized flubber all over. That would have been great. But I have a lot of questions about the professor, including like why, if he is so smart and he has all these inventions and that's totally fine, why does he just have moments of complete and utter, like, I don't want to say he comes across dumb sometimes, but the scene where they're flying in the car and he's up there and he's just like, this would be a great time to just, like, my guy, you're super, super smart. sometimes I question. I mean, I know it's supposed to be a comedy and everything, but sometimes I really question what exactly his motivation is.
You might say he's
You know,
absent-minded. You might say that. Um,
it's but is it to a fault though?
maybe a little bit. R2D2 in chat says worse stuff happened to the guys in Home Alone, but I was comparing them to the guys in Home Alone because they're like these like the Stooges, and they're like breaking into the house and casing the joint, and and like the Weebo is kind of the child who's left at home to try to set the traps, and runs the alarm of the dog barking to try to scare them away, and kind of like comes at them and tries to attack them back, and so it does give me that kind of Home Alone vibe situation with that. But there's a baseball bat, there's the golf ball, there's a bowling ball. He gets a catcher's mitt out of the closet. He's got the basketball that he takes to the practice of the game the night before. And I know I'm missing some stuff because I just kept thinking, why does Professor Brainerd have so much sporting equipment? It's just it was kind of insane. So speaking of the basketball game, I think we make fun of TV shows like 90210, movies like High School Musical, because they use all these older actors to play young kids. In the first movie, the guys who were playing the Medfield College basketball players must have been 60. They were just so old. In the Flubber movie, there was a time where I paused to do something, and I looked back, and there were the cheerleaders from the rival basketball team, and I bet they were in their 30s at least. Maybe it's a distance learning. What do you call it? Like, when you go and you get your degree after you've worked or whatever. But it just was so weird to me that everybody looked so much older in these scenes. And so they're in the basketball games, and both of these movies have the basketball scene. It's almost like this is the iconic scene from this movie and from the series, is that the basketball game is going to be a great time for Professor Brainerd to show what his stuff can do. In the first movie, he takes it and he basically irons it onto the bottom of all these guys' shoes. Crazy. In the second one, he is very scientific about it, where he takes it and he puts it on little thumbtacks, and he puts paint on the thumbtacks because when it scratches off, then they'll be able to jump high and do things. But it's the same thing. They get way behind, and then they come back, and then they again, spoiler alert, they win the game. And no one seems to question it too much, other than the other coach going, "Hey, they're clearly cheating." And in both of them, they say that, and then the ref says there's no rule against jumping high. So,
Right. Even if it's so high that you should definitely be questioning how human bodies are doing it. But it's fine. It's totally fine.
so at this game, the second one, and I don't know if you caught this or not. Okay, so Medfield is a Disney school. It's like a fictitious thing. It was in the Kurt Russell movies. There was a trilogy called, it was the World's Strongest Man, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, and the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes was that trilogy of movies, and they all took place at Medfield. So Medfield is like canon in the Disney universe, so to speak. It's sort of like, it runs through just like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Medfield. So in Medfield, I don't know that I knew that their mascot were the squirrels. But in the background of these scenes, you can hear so many little jokes about, like, oh, our Medfield squirrels are losing their nuts.
I honestly think that my favorite. Did you catch the part where the coach basically looks like he's just getting like completely thrown to the side by the mascot? Like, there's just a very short scene where he's kind of yelling and he's upset, obviously, and the squirrel mascot just comes out of nowhere and like slams up against him, and he's like, no, leave me alone. And I feel like that's like, it's such a quick scene, and it was probably the one time in the movie that I laughed out loud. Not to say that there aren't other funny moments in the film, but yeah, squirrel mascot guy. I don't know if it's scripted, but if it is, props to the writer. If it wasn't, props to that mascot, because they were really out there.
No, it was yeah. I mean, and the whole bit though about the nuts, it was just like you're like, wait a minute, where are you going with this? What are you doing, Disney? Where are you going with this joke? So anyway, and already in chat, there are a lot of jokes. Anyway, so exactly. So the basketball scene ends, and Sarah or Betsy, depending on the movie, still is not convinced that Professor Brainerd found something, and he's not really forthright about it. So what he decides to do is to use his flying car and follow them home and be a stalker himself. In both movies. In both movies, he's like lurking in the shadows, watching them kiss. But it's one of those things that's just like, is that okay? I don't think that's okay. But he's our hero, so I guess we forgive it. And then she's still not convinced. But in the first movie, there's that scene where the bad guy switches cars with him, and he takes the government, who he's trying to sell his flubber to, his idea to, and he gets 3 of these generals in his car, and it won't fly. And for some reason now, with this whole thing, Betsy decides to believe him. And then they work together against the bad guy to put Flubber on his feet, get him flying up in the air, make him say where the car is, go get the car, and the car is the key to everything. Not so in the second movie, but in the second movie, where is it that Sarah finally says, okay, I believe you? It's when she hears from Weibo, right?
Right. And I have to say, I feel like this is just going to sound really mean, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Put it out there.
I feel like there wasn't really a question that the professor loved her. I feel like the question was, like, does he love you enough to make the time to show up to your wedding? Because I feel like the answer is no, and that's totally fine. But like, when Weibo shows up and she's like, oh yeah, he's not absent-minded because of these things. He's absent-minded because he's in love with you. I audibly was like, that might be the dumbest line in this film. Because if he was absent-minded because he was in love with her, then wouldn't the movie be more, he showed up, he married her, and married life has like gotten in the way of the science? I'm like, the science never stopped. He just can't show up to his own wedding. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and my wife made the same point that then, there should be, after the second after the second mistake, you should have someone escorting him to the wedding. There should be somebody holding him by the arm and taking him to the wedding. Even in the first movie, the housekeeper's like leaving a bunch of notes going, hey, don't forget, but I got to go somewhere. I'll see you. In the second movie, it's just like, hey, everybody's talking about it. And you could tell that he's still not all there on it. Why was he not picked up and brought like to the wedding by somebody? Like, there should have been somebody who did that, right?
And they actually mention earlier in Flubber, when they're at the college, she says, we were at the rehearsal last night, you remember? And I was like, if you had him at the rehearsal, maybe that was the moment. Maybe you should have just gone ahead and said, I do then, because from the time they went to the rehearsal to the time he woke up, he had no memory left of the fact that he was supposed to be married that day.
Yeah, no, for sure. And if she knew what she was getting into, she probably should have. You're right. Like said, let's just do this for real. Like, why are we even messing? Let's just do it for real. And here's a great question. How does he know to show up for the rehearsal if he didn't know how to show up for the wedding?
By the end of the film, I was questioning how he remembered to propose in the first place. Like, did he show up for dates? What happened? And then the worst thing about it is, at the end, they do get married, but they don't get married in person. In the first one, they do. But in the second one, she just decides to cut bait and decide it's just not going to happen. So we'll get married via video camera and your child with Weibo. Like, that's how we're going to put this together. That's the other thing. It's such a disappointing end for, you really feel like that's going to be his growth moment. And I'm like, guys, he didn't show up for the fourth ceremony. And he's just actively, it's not even like he's really focused on it. He's actively doing experiments at home. That's all he's doing.
So you've got the science part of it, and you've got the love interest part of it, and what a challenge that is to happen. Do you really need to have the bad guy who is? And if you had a bad guy who is out to get the flubber, that's enough. But does Medfield have to be in jeopardy too? Like, it's almost like there's too many things going on, because you kind of forget the fact that the whole reason he wants to sell it is to be able to save Medfield College, right? The whole reason that he wants to make the money is to be able to make sure the college doesn't go under. They make a bigger deal of that in the first movie than they do in the second movie. In the first movie, they talk about how the Mr. Hawk, he was an alumnus in the first movie, and now his son goes there, and he's like, you know what, I don't care if they default on the loan, because I'm going to plow it over, and it's not making a lot of money anyway, and we'll make a shopping center out of it or whatever. And so that's his evil plan the whole time. In the second movie, it's very just like you see her on the phone trying to talk about, well, I don't know what colleges don't, lose money these days, and then the bad guy's son goes to the school only because he was promised that if he paid his son's way through, Lori Loughlin paid his son's way through college, then he could go to Harvard Business School, and then he could, and he was going to get all A's. And so Will Wheaton's character is supposed to get all A's, and then both movies, they get ejected from the basketball team, and then the flubber comes into play. So it seems like there's so much going on. You didn't need to have that extra plot twist. Disagree or agree?
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think one of the things that I ended up enjoying about The Absent-Minded Professor is just that it's more succinct. The character motivations are a little more clear, and the pacing, I would say, is better just throughout, just because you don't have, to your point, you have this whole the school is going under storyline, and then also the robot's in love with you and sabotaging your, almost wedding to the woman that you love. Even so much as, like, in the first version, I feel like the Shelby character, the guy who is also in love with Betsy, his only motivation in the movie is just that he's clearly always been in love with her, and I guess always been around, her parents know him. But in Flubber, when, I forget that character's name, but when that guy shows up, Brainard's like, yeah, you've been stealing my experiments. And so clearly they've known each other for a while, and there's this whole thing. And he's like, and now I've come to steal your fiance. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is very dramatic and complicated throughout. There's so many different stories happening.
Well, and while all this is happening, the music is done by Danny Elfman. And while all this is happening, there's also a show-stopping number. So in the middle of the whole thing, the Flubber and all of the appliances at the house start dancing and having a good, jolly old time. Does this need to happen? Again, like, I don't know that this was necessary. But, all the Flubber is dancing and dancing around, and Danny Elfman wrote this, like, conga song for it. It doesn't seem necessary, but I don't know. As a kid, was this a fun scene? Is this one you remember fondly?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely remember. Like, I think this is another point where I definitely recall this scene, but in watching it back now, I was like, wow, that was completely pointless. There was really no need to have it. It's cool to see, like the kitchen appliances go crazy, and then you've got the little fruit hat robot, and he's doing his thing, and that's all really cool, because I imagine that's just a fun scene to create. But at the end of it, did it have any effect, on the overall story?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Again, I like Danny Elfman. I like his music. I pretty much seem to like anything that he's done music for, whether it was 1989 Batman or whether it was Nightmare Before Christmas. I am a fan. So, I'm great with throwing this in, and maybe it was, for the kids. But it just was, again, one more complicated thing that didn't need to happen, because they're kind of trashing the house, but it doesn't really matter, because then the villains come in and trash the house right afterwards. So you don't really know where they trash stuff or where the villains trash the house. But they take the Flubber from here, and they come and they kill Weebo, and they take the Flubber and they take it back to the mansion, and that's where we find this his buddy who / villain is going to help Chester the villain to figure out what Flubber's all about. One of the things that I think of, though, with this scene and then also with all of his uses of flubber, whether it's spraying the spray on the shoes or whether it's, Ned Brainerd in the first one ironing on the flubber, is that this was a freak accident. I would assume he has a finite amount of this stuff, but they throw it around like it's just limitless. I mean, when he first makes flubber in the second movie in 1997, it's a small, like, handful creature. And even though he breaks apart for this dance scene and then comes back together, and he's like using him more sparingly because he's like diluting him in Noxzema or in water or whatever, it still doesn't seem like he's taking into account the fact that his whole lab had to explode in a freak accident for this to happen, right? I'm reading too much into this, but that's what we do here in Deep in the Plus, is we just read way too much into it.
I think that's a great point, because I just in general feel like once this thing is created, there should have been some more reaction of, wow, this is something that no one has ever done before. This could like save people. This could do big things. And, it's just kind of used on some shoes for a basketball game and to hopefully get a girl to like him, and eventually sold to Ford.
To make cars. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And they could have had a different plot twist in this one, in the fact that it was a sentient life form, that there could have been peril for Flubber, something that would have made it so that he had to make some Sophie's Choice about bringing Flubber and back to life or whatever. But he didn't have to do that. But you did lose Weebo. But luckily for Weebo, she had the whole design plans for a brand new Weebette, basically their child. Talk about the child thing, because I loved your take on this.
I mean, it's what a journey. Because first of all, I'm so surprised that I guess the same week that she makes this persona of Sylvia, she also films a tape in which she definitely says, if you're watching this, I'm already gone. So I guess she just knew that some terrible thing was going to befall her. And she basically says that she's taken out some of her flaws and added some of the professor in, and she hopes that, he will love her child. And even as she was saying that, I was like, no, this is their child in front of Sarah, no less. And, it's just a very strange moment where he feels like he really connects with this AI, and that's fine, except that Sarah is literally right there. Like,
I loved your take on this in the text you submitted. You were like, run, Sarah, run! Get away from this situation.
Go, please, Sarah.
Yeah, no, it was supremely weird. So anyway, I don't know. There's a lot of ways that could have gone with this, and I know we're micromanaging a 93-minute movie, but it was actually a success at the box office. And yet, even though it was a success, they didn't really do much with it after that. I mean, the original Absent-Minded Professor had a sequel. It was called Son of Flubber, and it's not available on Disney Plus. I don't know why. And then in 1988, they made that Harry Anderson, spiritual sequel, and that one is not available on Disney Plus either, but it was on The Wonderful World of Disney when that was still on NBC, so maybe there's some, rights issues that they can't have it. They were able to trade Oswald the Lucky Rabbit for Al Michaels, so why can't they trade something for the Harry Anderson version of this movie? I don't know, but I mean, it may just be too awful. I actually found it on YouTube in Russian and suffered through about, 8 minutes of it, just watching to find out about the computer assistant and that he has the dog and all that kind of stuff. But so this is something that was kind of sort of a franchise, and they have a bunch of these, like Freaky Friday, that they've come back to a lot, or Herbie the Love Bug. This is sort of a franchise for them. And they create this very marketable merchandise glob. And I would think that, the Sanderson sisters, you see their merch everywhere around Halloween. I would think they would find a way to bring this back and merchandise this in some weird way, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I would think so, because it really was a moment of, I kept thinking, yeah, this character is definitely here for the merch and for the kids. But then I thought about it and I was like, I don't think I owned a single toy of Flubber. You know, like, I mean, you could easily do, and in my mind, he would have to be like some kind of silly putty or slime in a cup or something like that, which would be great, and kids would be all about that. But yeah, I don't remember there ever being anything, you know, that really, any toys or merch that really connected me to this film, when it seems like that was the whole point of making him a bigger part of it. Because, you know, to your point, in the previous film, it is an invention that happens, and then they kind of move on with the overall story. In this movie, you have to think, well, surely the main reason that he keeps showing up and is so vibrantly colored, and, you know, he dances and he's funny, would be because he's there to be marketed towards kids.
Yeah. Well, let me talk about one thing that you may not know about, but people who are watching this probably do. And by the way, if you are still watching, thank you so much for watching this. We love talking with you guys and sharing this stuff with you. Please give us a like and subscribe. We have 40 people watching right now. We would love it if you all just hit the like button. We really appreciate it. Give a thumbs up to Devin and her blue hair. So when but people who watch this are probably huge park fans, and I don't know when the last time you went to Epcot was. When was the last time that you went to Epcot in Florida?
I have never been to Epcot, Rob.
Good night. Good night. That is horrible. I can't believe that you said that out loud, and now we have this on tape forever and ever. So let me educate you, girl. Let me educate you here a little bit. So there's this place called the Imagination Pavilion at Epcot, and it is the home of Figment, the dragon, and little purple dragon dude. And it was a great attraction way back in the day. They reworked it and made it kind of lesser and sad. But one of the things they did is they added this imagination science kind of a component to it. And so in the queue for the ride now is Weibo. So there was actually in the line you can see Weibo right there in a case. And there's a wall of inventors, and there's Dr. Wayne Szalinski from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and there's Philip Brainerd right there in the middle. Imagination Institute Inventor of the Year award recipients, by the way. But then there's a door that you walk through, or walk by. You don't walk through it. You walk by this door, and it says Professor Philip Brainerd, and it's glowing green, and there are these little dancing flubbers flying through the place as you go through. So, I mean, kind of cool, but I mean, it's at least some nod to this movie, and again, quite a franchise, right? So, but this door says Dr. Philip Brainerd. It does not say Ned or just Dr. or Professor Brainerd. It just says Philip Brainerd on it. So it's clearly, and because it's the green and the dancing guys, it's clearly a nod to the 1997 version with Weibo out in the lobby and Robin Williams on the poster. So at least this lives on somewhere. Now, I would hope, and I think most of the Parks fans would hope, that someday they will give Figment a better attraction than he has right now. And if that day comes, I hope they leave some of this somewhere, because I do think that at least having some nod to this movie is a big deal, because there are a lot of people who grew up with this movie, a lot of people like you who watched it, and really had some good experiences with it. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you, because I knew that I thought maybe you hadn't been in a while. Didn't know you hadn't ever been. That's you need to fix that.
I'm so sorry to just. I've only ever been to Magic Kingdom. Fun fact about me.
Well, you know what? That's something. I mean, you know. So, why do you think that they called this Flubber instead of the Absent-Minded Professor?
It's kind of what we said earlier. I feel like that character, that green character, was supposed to be what you took away. I feel like, especially since this film seems like it was more meant for a kid audience. Definitely family friendly, but much more directed towards kids than the original. I think they knew that was what was going to sell, with Robin Williams' face right next to it. Is pretty much, in my mind, like as a kid watching it, those are the things that I remember the most. Even more so than there being a flying car. You know, I remember that little green flubber dancing around. So to that point, Flubber makes sense. But if you were a parent or as an adult, you're watching this movie, you have to take a step back and really realize that Flubber does not have that much to do with the overall film. It is definitely a movie about Reynard, and it's his love story, tragic as it may be. You know,
it's a rom-com, is what you're saying.
It is. It really is. Well, you know, a more sad rom-com, especially for Sarah.
Yeah,
my
Sarah.
goodness.
So let me run through a couple of neat facts here. The movie's produced and the screenplay was written by John Hughes, who wrote lots of great, or who put together many great movies in the 80s and early 90s. You know, behind Breakfast Club, Home Alone. And we talked about you know, Nancy Olson playing in this movie. She's actually still alive. She's 92 years old. There was when this played in the theater, there was an episode of Disney's Pepper Ann that played before it. I don't know if you ever heard of Pepper Ann, but it was a Disney Channel show that ran for a while. The movie cost $80 million to make. It made $178 million, but that is worldwide. That's not domestic. I think it made like $93 million domestic, which may be why there wasn't a sequel. Usually they like to double their money at least when they're making these movies. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of good stuff about this movie to talk about, and I appreciate you talking about it with me. But I need to know now. You've watched this as a kid. You know where this is going. You watched this as a kid. You loved it as a kid. Then you volunteered to go back into this with me, and then you went back and watched it again. As I'm gonna go ahead and call you an adult, but I know, just you know. We're in similar situations. So now that you've watched it, Devin, would you recommend this movie?
It's a lofty question, because for families, I would say yes, I recommend. If you are just a single adult and you want to see a better version of this film, then I would recommend actually watching The Absent-Minded Professor.
Hot take.
It's a hot, fresh take, but honestly, it's definitely a better written movie in my opinion. But it's heavily lacking in Robin Williams. So, you know, you win some and you lose some.
So you would recommend watching Absent-Minded Professor over watching this?
I think if you have kids, watch Flubber. If you have kids at home, watch Flubber. If you have a family and you want to see something that's more fun, definitely watch Flubber. But if you're just an individual viewer, yeah, I would say watch The Absent-Minded Professor because it's good. It's a good movie.
Okay. I would actually say I would recommend this movie. I think it does stand up. You know, we talked about some of the weirdness about the hijinks and of Weibo. I think you missed that as a kid, so I think you're right. I think you do watch this as a family movie. You know, there's the fact that he fell out of a 2-3-story window and nothing ever happened to him. We didn't even talk about that. But there are a lot of things about this that are fun. Robin Williams, number one. I mean, I every time I see a Robin Williams movie, I sort of get sad that he's gone. But I'm grateful for the things that he gave to us with, you know, the Genie and Aladdin and some of the stuff that he did in the parks. I mean, he's just amazing, and I'm glad that he is part of the Disney legacy. So I would recommend this one. Honestly, the first one, you said something about pacing. It was really weird to me. You were talking about maybe it was paced out better. That's a longer movie, and yet with this one, they had to fill it with adding the robot and adding the, you know, these extra things that happened and the goons and the show-stopping dance number and all these things were added to it, and it's still only 93 minutes. But I think it's a good watch. And so the original one is black and white. It is Fred MacMurray. I mean, Fred MacMurray, who doesn't love Fred MacMurray, right? I mean, he was... That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. As soon as he put on that hat, I was like, that's Double Indemnity guy. Like, you know, so film noir. It was cool.
So, I mean... I like the original, and I think the fact that it is the original, it says something, and the fact that there have been many after it. I wish Son of Flubber was on Disney Plus, because I'm not sure I've ever seen it, and I would have loved to have seen what happens the second run. I think that Tommy Kirk played a bigger part in the second one, I believe, than he did in the first, because he's, you know, he is the villain's son, so he's not really, you know, there's really not a lot of relationship there. But I do think that that there was... There's still a lot of heart to that first movie, The Absent-Minded Professor, but the second one I just think stands up. I think it's a fun movie. It's an easy watch at 93 minutes, and I would definitely recommend it. Any parting thoughts from you about Flubber, other than the fact that now you want to go find a lot of Flubber merchandise?
Don't trust robots.
Don't trust
That's what
robots.
I have.
You know what? That's a solid takeaway. I appreciate it. So, again,
Right.
thank you guys so much for watching, and we appreciate you guys subscribing to WDW Entertainment, WDWNT Entertainment, because this is a new channel for us. We're trying to start it up. Everyone who has subscribed so far, thank you so much for subscribing. You can find us here every single Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. But coming up tonight on the other channel is Josh versus Tom. So if you guys are watching with us here, go watch Josh versus Tom on WDWNT's YouTube channel. But make sure to give us a like and subscribe here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, Devin. An honor as always to have you on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great night.